Let's see if I can do this without screwing up names.
Ann threw down the challenge to you this morning, right?
So Ann Harrison?
Yes.
Sandy Barbara Turner?
Yes.
Sue Philbrick?
Yes.
Denny Paul?
Yeah.
Richard Smith?
Yes.
Sarah Melish?
Yes.
And Michael Pratt?
Yes.
Okay.
Are you present?
I'm here also.
Are you?
Can't remember my name, but here I am. Okay, the first order of business is acknowledgement of correspondence, and we have letters from Ms. Giovanni, Mary Foley, and from Donna First. And I would like to discuss how we respond to these letters, because some of them, I think they all have really interesting questions that deserve responses. And I don't know whether we should be answering each one as it comes in, or trying to group the questions together and answer them in one like category to everybody at once.
I have a suggestion on that. With the 40B, we had probably 300 emails. And what we did, or letters, we put them up on the website and then didn't respond to them individually because there was no way we could, but then took the comments into consideration when we were holding meetings. So that kind of trying to say, okay, if people had questions, how can we respond to those verbally within the meetings?
I like that idea a lot. When you look at many of the letters, they're not really asking many questions. They're telling us things. They're giving us their opinions, and that's great. But they're really asking very few questions that, you know, need an immediate response from us, in my view. But I think we acknowledge to them that we've received their letter. We're gonna share it with the task force, and we'll post it on the website. And it would be great, we could tell them when our next forum is. If we haven't set a new date yet, we'll say, we hope you'll come to the next forum. And they can check the website for the date.
And I think it's crucial that we have Q&As up on the website.
Right.
Yes.
So
Which we
that, I
do,
mean,
yeah.
with the 40B, we were lucky because we had so much up on the website. We didn't get people coming to us asking for information. They knew to go to the website and everything was there. So I think it's important that the task force has everything there on the website.
Yeah, actually,
I
everything is
agree.
posted so far, all the
Yeah.
correspondence and so forth. We
Can I
could
ask
get-
this quick question? The
Sure,
Donna
yeah.
First one had like a back and forth, right?
Yeah, I
And
turned
so,
into.
so I saw TF, I assume TF means task
task
force, but who, so,
So this letter came in, and I thought one way we might handle this, and this is a draft that I just put together.
okay.
So you have not sent
I
it?
haven't said anything out, no, I wouldn't do that without having the whole task force
Okay.
approve it, so,
My reaction is right along the lines of Sarah and Susan. I can't see us spending a lot of time going through these questions and coming, you know, we're gonna get into 15 discussions just on the
Right.
basis of the letter and post them. They've got ample opportunity at the forums and we can remind them of that. In fact, it might be a good idea to answer these letters with a simple formula that says, thank you, we're gonna post it, and we welcome you to our next forum, at which you'll have a chance to bring in your.
so why don't I get Gail to do that, when she gets a letter, she'll send a
Yep.
response.
Yep.
I would also say, though, that to the extent there is a question that is not answered somewhere, that I think Tiffany is keeping a list of questions. And we just need to make sure that the questions that come up are answered and the
And that
answers
they're on
are
the
available.
website,
Yeah,
clearly.
That's good.
Yeah.
I guess the only question I have was that, with regard to Donna First's thing, that was a communication between her and myself. And I want to make sure that she was okay with posting it, since it wasn't addressed to the task force. I'd be a
It was
little
addressed
nervous.
to you in your capacity as a member of the task force.
Yes,
So I think that makes it a public document.
okay. Okay. I'm just sensitive to it if it was,
We generally remove email addresses, phone numbers, anything like that that's in a letter that comes in, but anyone who addresses a public official in that capacity, his capacity as a public official,
okay,
has made a,
okay.
and
A public.
I assure you that Donna is perfectly aware of that.
Okay,
Well, she also copied me on it, so.
Oh, well, there you go.
okay, then I'm off the hook, fine.
Okay, well, that's great, that's very helpful, thank you. Okay, next on the agenda is updated schedule. So the most important thing on the schedule, I think, is a week from today, and 10 o'clock in the morning is the kickoff meeting with the consultant. It will be a Zoom meeting. Those who can't attend in person can certainly beam in and pick up the recording if they can't make that either. And one of the things I'd like you, actually, Sandy, I got your note. Anybody who has questions for her, you can send them to me and I'll compile them and then send them to her in advance of the meeting next week, so she will come prepared. Oh, Gar's not here today, is he?
No, he was here this morning. Forget.
Maybe is he online? Does he?
Oh, no. There's nobody online.
He must have had enough.
No, he's only human.
Yeah, no, there's nobody on.
So can I clarify that there, we
Here
will
he
be,
is.
Here he is.
there will be
Speak
a
of the
meeting
devil,
here.
and he will appear.
So there'll be a hybrid end of the meeting here, or is it all?
It's all gonna be Zoom. Oh, do both. It'll be a hybrid meeting.
Okay, so some people will be here.
Oh, yes, yeah.
I won't be alone in this room.
No, I'm gonna be here. Emily will be here. And her team.
I
right?
plan to be here.
Yeah,
I'll be.
yeah, me too. I mean, I think she's gonna meet the whole crew.
Yeah, I think it'll be good for her to get as much FaceTime as she can.
To Gar's suggestion, have we prepared a booklet of information for her?
So that's what I want to do, is including questions that we want, or specific things we want her to address.
Yeah.
So Sandy gave me a list, which is very helpful.
Okay.
If others can get it to me tonight or tomorrow, I'll send it out. Promise to get it to her tomorrow afternoon.
Okay, great.
Yours is a very comprehensive list, though.
Richard was gonna send some of the scenarios, right?
Yeah, and you maybe already have.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna leave off the G100,
Yeah, that's fine, yes.
just to.
Yeah, not to confuse it, yeah. That was just more informational.
Okay.
Curiosity, I should say.
And the other, not quite so important thing is we're gonna have a walkabout downtown on November 18th, weather permitting. And anyone can come who'd like to. It's just, what we're gonna do is walk down Morse Court and look at Powder House, and then down Union Street and into 10 and 12 Summer Street, pass by Gar's place.
The infamous, so everyone.
We can't do a tour without seeing that. The idea is to try to demonstrate areas of higher density in town that already exist.
And possibly end at a location, Tiffany is looking into working out, somewhere like Dunkin' Donuts or the Flying Gull, Laughing Gull,
Laughing
Laughing Gull. Sorry if you're listening, Laughing Gull, to maybe end and, have some coffee.
Oh, that's a nice idea. That's a really nice idea.
And this starts at 10?
Yes.
Yeah, 10 on Saturday morning, yeah. Yeah, that's it for the schedule for now. We'll be updating the schedule and sending it out as we move along here.
There's one other thing on the schedule, actually, there's supposed to be a communications subgroup meeting on the same day as the meeting with Emily.
No, I think we
Did
put
it
it on the
move?
30th.
We did, it
Yes,
moved to
we
the
did.
30th, okay,
Yeah.
great,
Okay, I'll put that down, November 30th outreach committee.
that's great.
And I think we set it for a different time. I can't
11,
remember.
did we say?
I think it was 11, yeah. Because I just did the draft minutes today, I'm pretty sure it was 11.
All right, that's great.
You're ahead of me on this.
Well, they're spotty. I just happen to do those.
Okay, I do have one on 30th. So the one on the 16th is gone?
Yes.
Yeah, but we have enough meetings as it is.
Yes.
Okay, next item on the agenda is subcommittee reports. We'll start off with the zoning committee because it's not off the presses.
Yes, so I made up a summary. We've identified 3 or 4 possible areas downtown. We had many more, we brainstormed and we eliminated some because they didn't make sense. And so the 4 I think we're still considering, though the 4th one we may not be. One is Elm Street, Morse Court, Powder House, Lower Pine, and Sawmill Circle. Another is Harbor Point, Summer Street, Beach Street, and behind Town Hall, though we feel Harbor Point may be problematic because of its size. Another, I think, is the Summer Street, Brook Street, Cricket Building area. And then finally, we looked at Desmond, Summer, and Brook, and I don't think we're all aligned with that one, so that one easily may come off the list. But each one is around 9 acres. So we have the opportunity to whittle them down or only include 2 of them to get to the 15.6 acres. Richard has been fantastic, and he has created models in the compliance system. And so we've been using various parameters to determine the impact. We're assuming 3 stories. And so far we've been looking at the existing general district setback, so 5 foot in the front and 10 feet on either side in the back. We've identified an area in the LCD of over 20 acres, but we haven't done any modeling on that because we kind of feel that's not as complex as the downtown area. We've talked about a possible multi-use district on Beach Street, and maybe part of Summer Street, like towards the dry cleaners. It's complicated. A separate district doesn't count the land included in the district, but you can use the residential units to offset a portion of what the others required within the half-mile radius. To reduce the density. The interesting thing is if an existing lot is too small for a 3-family unit based on our parameters, you can't count any of the existing buildings. So if it's a single family or a 2-family resident and we've said it's a minimum lot size of 6,000, that's not going to be included in the count of units or density. And we're juggling the land, we're just trying lots of examples. The other thing is if you include excluded land, it decreases the density. So one of the things we've been trying to do is to eliminate excluded land from the areas. And we seem to have enough acreage that it's not a big issue. There's still many open questions. One of the questions is can we offset a lower density within the half-mile radius for a higher density outside of the half-mile, like in the LCD?
The averaging,
Yes.
sort of.
Yeah.
Yes.
Does that cross the half-mile radius, or is it within the half-mile radius versus outside that? The other thing is, does the number of parking spaces impact the density model? It seems like on first blush that it may be they're assuming the parking's going to be in setbacks, so that it seems like if we increase the parking requirement, that doesn't adversely impact the density, but that's again an open question. There's still an open question of how many units do you want to allow in a larger parcel? And what controls can we implement to, help that? Another is how do we incorporate affordable housing on small lots? Or do we limit it to lots of capacity of greater than 5, which would give you 1 unit if it's 20%? We haven't talked much about that. And then finally, I think probably the biggest challenge, and we're not always in total agreement on this, is how do we protect the existing ambiance and avoid a lot of tear downs and rebuilds and protect as much of the existing as possible? And I think that's having to play with the model and figure out what you can do with it. If you're gonna have a small lot that isn't going to be able to hold 3 units, then if you have a lot size that's large enough, that's not gonna be included anyway, so they wouldn't be able to build on it. So, but we have a lot of work to do, and we're hoping the consultant can help us with our open questions and take a look at what we've done to kind of see if we're way out of whack or not. I don't think we are, because I
No, it
think Richard's
sounds
done a really good job.
One of the questions that comes to my mind as I look at the compliance model is that in the compliance model, you have, 16 things you can choose to define what's gonna happen. Well, zoning laws can be, as we all know, a lot more complicated than that, so they're gonna have to give us some kind of a feel about what we're gonna be able to get away with in terms of the flexibility we take on our own language and how it confines to that
Yep.
formulaic approach that the state takes.
Mhm. Okay, very good. The community outreach committee?
We have been doing outreach.
I had another
Blazing, yeah, we had another forum, on last night? Last night.
Yeah.
Um,
With 20 virtual
Yeah.
attendees, 20 virtual.
And it went very well. Chris kicked it off, with a great statement. Sort of just the facts again, and there was some good back and forth questions. Anne provided great questions to get discussions going a little bit. That was very much appreciated. And I don't, other than our meetings, I don't think we've had any other public events.
Well, we had the lunch with the Council on Aging.
Oh, that's right, you and I
okay.
went and spoke at the Council of Aging. There were maybe 30 or 40 people there.
It was
and
actually
had
bigger.
some
That's
good,
great.
good
But there were some really good
discussion.
questions.
Yeah. Yeah.
What kinds of things were concerning people?
Well, there was talk about downsizing for seniors and the availability, whether the local preference was talked about, or a couple of topics like that.
Affordability.
Affordability.
And not wanting it to look like Rantoul Street.
Oh,
Or
boy.
Rantoul Street.
Which is a
Poor Rantoul Street is great.
common theme, I think.
Okay,
And our next meeting is November 30th. And at that point, we're going to start thinking about what kind of outreach should be included in our next phase and how we should incorporate the consultant with that. Do we sort of get her out front and center? And us step back a little, but we'll be talking about that, as well as we've been invited to speak in January at
Manchester Club.
Manchester Club, and how that will work.
Are they going to let Hugh in?
Probably not.
Oh, come on. Oh, and there'll also be a table or a,
Oh, yes,
At the
at town
town
meeting,
meeting.
thank you. Yes, do you wanna talk about that?
well, I mean, there'll be a pile of FAQs. I don't know, and we should talk to Tiffany about this, if she also wants to do a table the way she did at the Boosters Carnival, which was pretty helpful. A lot of people came by. It was an informal kind of thing, like the first forum.
I think we're not going to do that because the agenda for the meeting is so packed.
Oh, okay, so
That
we'll just send
really,
it.
it's just a pick up a handout,
Mhm.
we're here, you know.
Yeah, I don't think we wanna clog it.
Yeah.
Oh, I received an email about not clogging the lobby.
Yes.
No
Oh,
lobby clogging, yes.
Oh, boy, okay.
And we should all show up at 5:30 to help
Right.
process the registration process.
Just a thought about whether we should use the, consultant as a spokesperson. We're paying for her hours,
Right.
and I think the town would take it better, take the information better, coming from us, people they know,
Right.
So
rather
we'll
than some.
Yes.
continue to be out, that's a good
Yeah.
point, Anne, a really good,
Yeah.
I don't think of that, I'm glad that you bring these things up.
So how many hours do we have with the consultant?
It depends on which part of the consulting firm we're using. Some
Oh,
parts
okay.
are more expensive, but I suspect that the figurehead is the most expensive.
Actually, she's not, it's the partners,
Oh, okay,
they're
okay.
quite a bit more expensive.
Right,
But
it's
it's
the
a good-
traffic study or the,
Yeah, the
Economic
economic
feasibility
feasibility
study.
study,
Right,
things like
those
that.
people,
Yes.
right.
Yes.
Better to use them to do things we cannot do.
That's right.
We might look at whether there's some part of the Christmas by the Sea where, I'm not sure that I want to do MBTA zoning and Christmas at the same time, but that's
Not
going to be,
outside, no,
that's going to be a big, well, at least the chamber says that's going to be a big thing this year.
Oh, really?
We'll think about that,
Then we
Yeah,
can talk about it
yeah,
at the 30th.
yeah.
Maybe waiting to see what the weather's gonna be like.
new zoning law for Christmas.
Yeah.
What do you want to do?
Pick a building you want to save.
Probably deemed to be a piece of coal.
Oh, you can have a sort of little, with the dresses in it, you know. Oh, dear. Oh, yeah,
Are you interested in us changing the zoning for your property so you can sell it, right? Like that person in Carlisle.
Okay, moving on. So the next thing I'd like to do is go through the questions. We're not supposed to answer these yet, I don't think, but I just wanted to sort of take everybody's temperature a little bit as to how you think about these things. And there are no particular order, but I'm just gonna go through them one at a time. So the first one was, do we create a single district or several districts?
I think the answer to that one's pretty clear.
Just several,
Several.
yeah.
Maybe
for
even
sure.
many.
And the second one's related to that, do we focus on the general district or consider a different area, including residential districts?
I think in the zoning subcommittee, we've been trending towards the general district just because those are areas with higher density,
And lower setbacks and
Today.
lower,
lower setbacks. And, you know, for instance, on the Elm Street section, we're including Sawmill Circle. And that's a new enough development and dense enough that you wouldn't think somebody would come in and tear it down
Right.
and rebuild. Plus like the lower Pine Street condos.
Yeah.
So the extent to which we can include that sort of area,
Although it's fair to say, we feel like the LCD is an option that we
oh, for
haven't-
outside the half-mile
Yes,
radius, oh,
yes.
yes.
I have regrets that we're doing everything entirely on the inner circle. I think we're missing kind of the point of the
Yep,
law, if there is one. I also think we may well be able to get to Sarah's point earlier, we may well lessen considerably the impact on the general district and the downtown by using higher density outside. So that's another way of thinking about that same question that
yeah.
changes it somewhat.
Okay,
I mean, if we could get it down to density of 10, right? And
Well,
in
I think it's complicated because you're not just changing the density. You can keep the density the same under the new zoning law and yet still very much change the dynamics of redevelopment because you've put places, you've changed what it you change the difficulty of replacing a building because the old laws are gone.
I mean, I think a fair answer might be that what we've been thinking about and giving our attention to for the moment is the general district, but really it's a multivariate equation.
Yeah.
And looking outside the district has benefits as well.
Isn't it the case that half the district has to be contiguous? Half the acreage has to be contiguous?
Yes, yeah.
No, it has,
So-
half the acreage has to be in the half circle.
No,
Well,
no,
Yeah,
half
so
the
there's
acreage
two
has to be
stages to it.
contiguous.
But-
And be
but-
contiguous.
The large contiguous could be outside. the
What you
house.
said is true,
Yeah.
but it also has, there's also another requirement. that
50%
half
contiguous,
acreage has to be contiguous.
which we could do in the LCD based on that
Uh-huh.
site we found that was like 22, 23 acres.
Yeah.
That would be
It's a
half.
big site.
But I think one of the real questions that we don't have an answer to is if we could do a higher density in the,
Right,
and a lower density. Because, I mean, I think to Richard's point, we want to maintain the character of the town,
right.
Yeah,
first and foremost. And if we can minimize the potential damage in the historic district, in the downtown area, that'd be a win.
Right.
So I'm just trying to understand, so there's a potential where there's a section on the LCD that we could designate?
Yeah, we kind of looked at the medical building
Mhm.
and then back, maybe the Brady site on Beaver Dam Road, but going back up and maybe including the MAC. And that area is like 23 acres.
So keeping it rough, you could have half of the total required there,
Yeah,
and then the other half
be scattered around the downtown.
Yeah,
has to
And
be
the-
within the,
yeah, and the
Half
question
mile.
is can the density in that LCD be more than 15 units per acre
So
so
that
that
you
in
average
town
out-
it would be
Exactly.
lower? Yeah,
right.
right,
and we don't know that answer.
we don't know if
It
that's,
appears from the office hours that that's the case, but I think it
Right.
really needs to get confirmed.
Because
you have to average out at 15.
15 per
Yeah.
acre.
So if you
So
went
if
20
did
and
get
There
10.
20 out
Yes.
there, we could do 10.
And looking at
And,
another
you know, we're
town's
gonna-
plan,
We're gonna find out from Emily, but there's clearly a subjective element to this
absolutely.
evaluation. And so, you know,
Okay.
probably if you did, 30 and 5, it would work.
It's math, right? At the end of the day.
It wouldn't be 30 and 5, it'd be 30 and 0.
There you go.
That's not gonna work.
Okay, that's interesting, I like that idea. Okay, the next thing is it best to tinker with existing regulations and districts, or do we create an overlay district with its own regulations? And I have a feeling it's gonna be a little bit of both, and the reason I say that is, although I know overlay district is the way we're probably gonna go, but there are some pieces to this that we're gonna wanna just change the way the town does business, like demolition delay, to
Right.
protect some of these buildings. And maybe some design review and things to protect the character of the
Yeah, I
town.
think a huge part we haven't looked at and we need to look at is design standards. And I think that could do a lot for us in the downtown area.
Yeah.
We've never had design standards as,
I'm not sure that either of those is really part of the zoning. And yes, they're.
it would be part of the overlay district, I think, that you're allowed to put in
Oh,
design.
you are, yeah.
Stand-
They've explicitly stated that we can
Yes,
include
Yeah,
yes.
they said
Yeah.
this.
Okay, the question is, do we tinker with existing regulations or do we create an overlay? And it sounds as if those things all go into an overlay.
I think so.
I think this question is something you defer until you have some district picked out and you figure out
Yes.
what it is you're trying to do.
Right, figure out what we need
Yeah.
to, how we make them conform.
Okay, do we wanna, we've already answered that, going beyond the 1/2 mile radius.
Yeah.
Yes, we
Yes.
want to consider the district.
As
Should,
much as we can.
and we've answered this next one too, should the density requirement be focused on the downtown, or should it be more equitably shared with outlying residential districts?
We might-
Yes,
I think
LCD
they- yeah,
isn't a
I
regular.
think-
Well, the LCD isn't exactly a residential
Right.
district, is it?
But we might want to talk a little bit about the thought process that got us there. Because if you think about spreading it out in all the different districts compared to the general district, I mean, to us, the pros and cons are obvious, but maybe not to everyone else.
I think a better way to think about it is that what we said in our meeting earlier this morning, which is that our first problem is to meet the requirements and our second problem is to retain the character and quality of the town. And if that's our focus, that's more important than what particular district we choose.
And if you look at downtown, certainly the half-mile radius, the majority is general district.
Right.
No, that's not correct.
Half is general district.
Okay, half, okay.
Half is,
Not even half.
Half
half is
is,
District E, actually, which is.
Yeah, it's not even half. The general district is a relatively small part of the.
Well, it's 50 acres.
yeah,
It's 50 acres.
what's in the circle, I think, is 300.
Yeah, and of that, a lot is excluded land.
That's right. Yes, that's right. But, okay, well, whatever.
Sorry to be contradictory.
I wonder if this is a moot question now. How can we change our zoning bylaw to allow by right what is currently non-conforming? For a non-conforming family properties,
I
so
think
that their units can be counted.
I think that's what we're trying to look at in the model, is trying to figure that out.
How we keep what we've got.
So I think one of the,
Yeah.
I think one of the problems is if we were to allow GAR's property by right, that would suddenly allow every building in the downtown
Right.
to have 7 units.
Yeah, that's why I made that
And-
crack earlier about the fact that he's non-conforming now and he'll probably be
Non-conforming
non-conforming
Yeah,
afterwards.
makes- So,
I had hoped
permanently
that the
so.
model would let us grandfather in
Right.
the existing units, but from what I've seen so far, it doesn't seem like there's that capability.
Yeah, it lets us grandfather them in from the point of view that they're obviously still legal,
Right,
but unless we find out something that would be very surprising to me
yeah,
from Emily, it doesn't matter what's there. I mean, that's the thing that you have to keep coming
Right.
back. It does not matter what is currently there for these computations.
so GAR can rebuild, but it's gonna be a special permit.
That's right.
Yep,
But the point is that if you were to zone that area, for example, to have the density of GAR's building.
Yeah, we've got a problem.
we-
Oh, you got a
we-
huge
we
problem.
have a, you know,
Particularly since we can't zone just his building.
Right.
We have to have a 5 acres.
we'd like to zone just his building.
Definitely.
Zone it out.
But I think we still could, and I hope we will, pose the question to Emily.
Yes.
How can we somehow get credit for the fact that in the development over a century of this downtown, their historical properties have been created, which happen to be in conformance or in the same spirit as this law? And is there a way for the state to recognize that as opposed to, exclude, saying, sorry, it's just
It's-
not there?
It's a really good point. I don't think the answer is gonna be yes, but maybe it'll have some effect on the subjective side. A good example is,
Exactly.
there's
I
a
mean,
two-family house behind me which has a parcel density of like 30,
Yeah,
and it won't count for anything,
right.
which
no
is
matter what we
crazy.
do.
So,
I
you know,
mean-
this, I looked at the MIT presentation this afternoon, which is really
For fun.
interesting in light of
Because
this.
you don't have enough to do.
But they made a statement which I thought was interesting, which is the existing density in the downtown is 12 units an acre, which I can't believe that's true.
That is not correct. I know it's not correct.
So I wrote a note to Nineveh and asked her to see if she
Double
could.
check.
So how far off is that number?
Well, I got it by street, and it also depends on what you mean by downtown. I mean,
Right.
that's a
Yeah.
really,
Right.
that's a really funky number, because, are you including Harbor Point? In which case the density just plummets.
No, fair enough, but you're saying that their number's
It's
not
around
correct.
8.
It's around 8, okay.
Again, it depends on what you
Yeah.
take for the,
Well, like-
most of the streets, if you look at them, are between 8 and 11.
To Gar's point, though, I think it's important to
Yes.
bring that up.
Yes.
And because what we're learning from Richard's work on the compliance model is that there's a fair amount of subjectivity in the whole process. And if you don't ask, you don't get. So,
Absolutely.
All right, the next question is a little inflammatory, but I'm gonna throw it out there. Should we consider a minimum threshold compliance solution? And then add language to allow potential developments with special permit, which might be a greater benefit to the town.
I don't see why we would want to do anything more than the minimum.
That's my feeling.
Absolutely.
And
That sounds like a,
I mean, what would be the greater benefit? I guess that would be, as an example.
Well, let's say somebody came in with a proposal to build something on the parking lot here and would include a senior center at no cost to the town.
They can do that today. There's nothing in this,
Well, no, there'd be like a senior housing complex with 50 units.
well, that would be before the planning board.
Well, we couldn't,
Well, how did they approve the Harbor Point?
that's a very good question. No, this would be a residential build, multifamily building.
Right. But, I mean, the Harbor Point, I don't see that's anywhere in our bylaw.
Well, it's a commercial building, isn't that allowed?
No, not with that number of units. I don't think so. What?
or that high.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know, I wasn't here.
I wasn't either, but I think that, go
Not
ahead.
that high?
What?
Okay, we're talking about the 40 Beach Street?
Yeah.
Okay, it's 2.5 stories,
Yeah,
in-
just doing
in-
those
in-
stories.
because I worked on the 3rd floor and I banged my head every time I turned
Oh,
around.
yeah, it is.
You have remembered.
But how did that get approved?
Must have been a special permit.
I'm sure it was a special,
With the
per-
planning
because,
board, I would
oh,
think.
it was a big project because it was flooded. And it had to be filled,
Yeah.
and
So I'm saying planning board could approve a project in the town parking lot, I think.
It could, but not a residential building,
Why?
because we don't allow multifamily.
General district, that's general district.
We don't allow multifamily in the general district.
3 families, multifamily.
Well, this would be 50 family.
There's,
okay.
Okay, but back to the question at hand, I certainly personally would not be in favor of anything to go above what we have to by just to
I
comply,
agree.
like,
Okay.
that seems crazy.
Let's
I
not look for
agree.
trouble.
right,
We're getting
And I
strong armed by
also-
the state, I don't see why we do more than what we have to.
I also feel like the residents of the town, that's their expectation, that,
Mhm.
that we do the job we're given, not go past it.
right.
How about a density bonus for increased affordability?
A density bonus.
Right, so if somebody
On a
builds in the
specific project.
overlay
On a
district.
specific project?
As part of this,
Well, we're talking about affordability as part of this, right?
Yeah, we're gonna require at least 10% and probably
And, right,
20%.
and some of the citizen comments have surely been very vocal about wanting affordability.
But we can require affordability and yet within the scope of the, whatever the current number of units and density, right?
Right,
We don't need to,
give
No, what I could
bonus.
say is that, so let's say you had a 10-unit project, we could require 2 of them be affordable.
Right.
And what if, under a special permit, we could say, well, do 4 more and give us them all would be affordable, so we get,
I don't think we wanna do that. I just,
I think this may be a little further down
The,
the
right,
pike.
okay,
And
Right.
one of the concerns I have is that to raise the number of affordable units beyond 10, it has to be economically feasible.
sure.
Right.
And that has not yet been proven.
right.
And I think that will have in order for it to be economically feasible to make 20% of the development affordable, I think that raises the cost for the other units a lot. So,
Right,
I
And
can also tell you that in today's world, with the interest rates where they are and with building costs where they are, even getting 10% and making a project work, it's gonna be hard. 20% today, that'll change, but today, requiring 20%, I suppose you can find somebody who will tell you it's economically feasible, but I'm telling you that, it's
You
more
won't get
likely
anybody to
than
invest
not.
in it, that's for sure. At 20% today with today's costs.
Right.
It's,
but this is a determination that gets made by our consultants firm, not,
Right,
Yeah, they can
but you
tell
have
us.
to provide that as part of the submission to
Yes.
executive office.
You know, I think we're zoning for a long time. When did these zoning laws, I mean, when did the bones of the zoning laws we have now come into effect?
1945.
1945.
Yeah,
We're
we're zoning
zoning
for a long time.
For a long time.
Yeah.
We've got an enormous task to try and look ahead and figure out what the unexpected consequences of what we're doing are. And the last thing we should be doing is leave loopholes for even more things that we cannot really predict accurately to happen. That's my
point.
take.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I agree.
Okay, I think we know the answer to this one, but I'm gonna put it out there because it's been on the list. Do we try to address the mandate by allowing just 3-family properties? Or should we propose zoning changes that allow larger developments on larger parcels?
It's not an issue because you can't do it with 3 families.
Yeah, I think that the compliance model is gonna kind of lead us down the road as to
Okay.
what we need to do with
Well, what I
larger.
said is
Yes.
really not true though, because we don't know what the density in the circle has to be.
Right.
So if the density in this, we could come back to this. You're right.
Yeah, Sarah's point
So,
is
yeah,
right,
you're
the
right.
model is gonna lead us down a,
Okay, should we try to protect existing commercial and retail uses by requiring mixed-use properties with commercial space on the ground level and
Yes.
residences above?
yes, yes, yes.
Where it works.
Yeah, I
Based
think
on
we
your
kind of
point
looked at
earlier.
the Beach Street area and
Well, we're gonna go
saying,
around, yeah, I guess.
and up Summer to the dry cleaner, is that a reasonable mixed use area? Cause that doesn't include in our acreage for the 15.6 acres.
Right.
Right,
But it gives us a credit
right,
That helps with the density.
for the density.
yeah.
And I don't want
And the
somebody to
unit-
tear
and the
down
units.
Crosby's and put up,
Yeah,
Right.
exactly,
Well,
condos.
that
I think the answer to that is yes, pretty simple.
We gotta
yes.
try to figure out how we can do it.
Yes.
Yes.
Is that all floodplain?
No, I don't think Crosby's
is
is,
not, but,
Harbor Point has pieces.
It's not, in the model where they identify an exclusionary zone, which pretty much follows, I think, the FEMA floodplain. And it hits the end of Tappan and the back of Tappan, but doesn't touch the rest of that parcel.
because they used to take barges up there with grain in them.
That's interesting.
Is that right?
Considering that all
geez.
that is tidal fill land.
Yeah, well, that's another question. So, under our current zoning, anything that requires a chapter 91 permit, which includes filled tideland,
Yeah.
requires a special permit by the planning board.
But we have filled tideland in town that predates chapter 91. And
I'm sure
wow.
we do.
But I think we wanna eliminate that existing special permit requirement.
Right.
Within the MBTA district. right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
within the, yeah.
Yeah, that's my feeling also.
Yeah.
Because I don't know what the planning board.
It's just gonna limit the area we can count.
I think we know the answer to this one. Do we want to propose design guidelines?
Yes.
Yes.
We've already got Richard working on it.
Richard's not working on it, but he's about to get
He's cranking
It's on the
out,
list.
he's cranking out models at request.
I haven't given him all my changes yet.
So this next one's interesting. Richard will have something to say about this too. How do we coordinate the MBTA zoning with historic districts?
Yes.
Or do we avoid the historic district?
Well, I think I already expressed my personal preference, which is we just avoid it. Because you don't gain much. It's such a tiny piece of land. There may be some place where we are stuck with contiguous problems where we have to, but I haven't seen them. So I don't see much reason to go after it.
I think it depends on where the historic district is. Is Morse Court and District, oh, okay, good, okay. Because we've tried to avoid the houses along Central
It's pretty much the spine from Washington
Okay.
to
Bridge.
the beginning.
Is there any benefit to the historic district that might come from this?
No.
tearing down buildings and building
No,
multifamily housing.
no.
I can't imagine.
Okay, well, if demolition delay is part of the picture, that would certainly.
Demolition delay doesn't have anything to do with MBTA zoning,
No.
and would be a townwide, under some, probably be townwide with some condition related to what the structure is. I think that's a.
I mean, I think that originally we were talking about including some of the historic district on Central Street because it had multifamily units. But once we found out that you can't include the number of existing units, you don't gain anything by that. So why not leave it out?
Please leave it out.
Well, one other answer to this might be, do we require a site plan review by the planning board for any project?
No. Maybe you could over a certain size.
I think this is my suggestion is this is an Ennis question, because
Mhm.
I would say yes if it didn't get in the way of approval by the state. But that sounds like a red flag question to me.
Right.
No,
Yeah.
actually, the
Is
state
it
says you
as
can
of
do,
right if
Oh.
you have to have
you
site
can
plan?
do site plan review,
You
but you
can.
can't impose unreasonable conditions. on
It
it.
can't be too subjective. It
But I
has to-
can't believe they would allow a site plan review on a small lot with a 3-family. That's different than a bigger.
Well, there may be some
So you,
reason why we avoid the smaller projects.
right, you might want a size, you know, if it's over a certain number of units.
Something over 10 units or.
Yeah,
Yeah.
But that's a question for an
Yeah.
expert and
Right.
Yeah, to the degree it's allowed, it seems a good idea to me.
Why would you give it up?
Yeah, right? I mean,
Yeah. This is a nice question, it's gonna be, well, should we consider form-based zoning, which can create specific design guidelines for individual properties?
that seems like a larger question than we can handle between now and December of next year.
It might be, but we might be able to pick a few parcels that we think are important. For example, the rich deal, if we're gonna include that in the district, and say, we want parking in the back and no more than 3 stories and,
but that doesn't fit in the model, does it?
Form-based zoning?
Well,
Yeah.
that along with the guidelines themselves are gonna be part of the subjective review by the state, because they allow guidelines, but obviously they don't go in the model, so.
Right.
Obviously, you could make guidelines that were just totally restrictive, so I think we just have to expect that they're going to look at what we do and figure out.
Yeah,
if it's
somebody
restrictive.
said if the design guidelines say we have to use gold siding on every building, that's not gonna
Problem.
be.
Yeah. I just think going to form-based is just adding more complications that I'm not sure it's
Let's-
worth it.
Let's get
Town has
some help from some architects looking at
Yeah.
other people's things and see what comes up, and then we can.
The town has not got much appetite for zoning changes.
Oh, you're kidding.
Really?
How can you say
And
that?
I think that trying to introduce a new model
It's a problem.
I think
is,
that's a very good point.
That's a very good point.
Do we want to establish a list of historic or other significant structures in these districts that we wish to protect?
There is an effort going on in the Historic District Commission. We've hired a consultant and we're undertaking a survey of properties in the town. That's kind of the easy part. But, you know, I don't see how that's part of this scope.
Right.
I'd like to, I mean,
I guess that'd be part of form-based zoning, wouldn't it, to say these buildings have to be saved no matter what? They could be added on to or renovated, but they can't be replaced.
yeah, I don't know.
It'd be nice to know what the historic significant buildings are, wouldn't it?
Yeah, well, there are some avenues that we can pursue after that, but there is a state, I'm not as up on it as I should be, but there's a state requirement for the way in which you put together this survey of the buildings in order to designate some buildings as significant, and that's what we're undertaking.
I mean, in my opinion, the answer to the question is yes, but the follow-up question is how do you then determine that list?
Well,
Hopefully
the
Richard's,
Historic Commission is working on it.
yeah.
You hire a consultant and you pay them a lot of money, and they look through all the records and decide what's significant, and they do, there's a lot of it's just by age, but they'll do age and they'll just do the classification of the architecture and, you know.
So someone,
Pretty sure Ridgedale's won't show up on that.
yeah. So someone is working on this list, or no, you're saying theoretically that could be done?
We are working on it.
There is a question we skipped, number 14.
14.
We talked about site plan review by the planning
Oh,
board.
do we
but-
want to have the planning board or the historic commission designated to review the design of these projects?
I think we want design guidelines.
Someone has to enforce them, right?
Well, that would, if there's design guidelines in the zoning overlay district, the building department would be responsible for making sure that the structures conform with those design guidelines.
Yeah. I know some towns have architectural review boards. It certainly wouldn't be the Historic District Commission's job to pass judgment on whether or not.
I don't think it would be planning board. I just think, historically, when you talk about planning board does not deal with the individual residential lots. That's always been ZBA, but ZBA is not gonna do the design review, I can tell you that. So it seems like you have to have design guidelines that are part of the building permit process.
I question whether our depth of bench here at Manchester, particularly in regard to the building department, has the capability to enforce or, arbitrate design guidelines.
Well,
I think it might be, I'm not saying we shouldn't do it, I think we should do it,
If the
but.
guidelines are specific enough, that's easy for them because they get the plans.
Perhaps the building inspector could convene an advisory committee to help them do that.
Yeah,
I mean, I think we'd have to wait and see what the design guidelines are
okay.
and then ask the building inspector, is this something you can?
My experience with the building department is they're good at what they can do, but there are a lot of things they can't do.
Right, I agree.
It's a very good point. In thinking out what our design guidelines are, we should take into account the fact that we've got a problem in enforcing them, and they either have to be very, very simple and
Right.
straightforward, or we have to find some new way to.
Right.
To enforce.
What's, in general, what's the harm with having planning board review design? Like, in other words, extra eyeballs on something?
It's, you're going to have a lot of pushback from residents who can't do anything to their houses because they have to go through so many levels of reviews. If I were in the district, I own my house, and I couldn't do anything to it until I had a design review, that's quite different from what it is today.
Yeah.
And I just think I can see it on larger projects, no question about it.
Right.
But you're talking a 3-family home.
My business partner had a house in Old Marblehead, he was trying to put storm windows on the house.
Yeah.
They said you can't put even painted white storm windows, they have to be wood storm windows with the old hinges that hinge
Oh my
down.
gosh.
He was apoplectic about this, this is absurd, he couldn't figure it out. And so there are absurd limits, that these things can be brought to. And so it's a bit of a prickly,
Yeah, no, I get it. I got my own anecdotes about putting a pool in here versus the prior town, and it was like
Right.
10 times harder here, trust me.
Right,
I
right.
was just saying, like,
And
in general, extra eyeballs, I don't know,
well,
Well, let's see what the standards look like and then we.
Yeah.
yeah.
But the planning board is also fairly busy.
Right.
And if they have to review every 3-family, it's,
We're also not architects.
Right.
Right.
You're asking people who probably don't have the skill set to oversee something that,
I mean, it really would seem like you'd need another board.
oh, Jesus.
I know.
I know.
I know, but I mean,
Yeah, I know.
The board of architects.
I just think we're too small a town for that sort of thing.
yeah.
That's my opinion,
Yeah.
How many hoops are we gonna make people jump through?
Right.
Okay, here's one that Richard asked before, which I think is a good one. Can we include town or school district land in our zoning areas to get to the 5-acre minimum? And should we try to do that?
What number?
It says number 20.
Oh, I'm not. Oh, it's not here.
And I think you jumped way ahead.
I think that came up because we were trying to connect some properties, and
Right.
so we thought that we could use, and I'm pretty sure, we can ask Emily, I'm pretty sure you can.
I think so too.
It just dilutes you,
It adversely impacts the density.
so
That's
it
what
means
we're
that you have to pack the other area a little more densely, so that's that negative, and I'm not sure we have to anymore.
Right.
Okay,
It's the whole contiguous.
But we don't have that second page that you've got.
Second page.
Well,
Mine stops at 18.
Yeah,
Mine stops at 19. Mine stops at 19.
Yeah,
Well, I think I may
19.
consolidate some of these,
Yeah.
I sent them out.
But we were on 14.
No,
we're
no, we
skipping
went
around.
back to
Yes, that's
14.
correct.
We went back to 14.
Right.
So
I had skipped 14.
I'd like to answer 15 because then I can,
Okay.
it'll explain why I'm about to leave.
Great.
Do we do anything to prevent or delay demolition of significant buildings? Our chair in the Historic Commission is pursuing that. That's a big deal. That went down in flames the last time it was introduced at town meeting.
Down.
So we're trying to go about it very carefully and make sure it gets vetted and et cetera, et cetera. And it, I think, is a separate issue from anything that we're doing here.
That makes
And I don't think
sense.
you'd want to have any more.
You don't want to
From
go
that.
down in flames just because of that.
Well,
That's true.
the Historic District Commission does not wish to be blamed for doing
Well,
So-
and I know the planning board has already received 1 or 2 letters from people who are already opposed to the concept of demolition.
Well,
Really?
the specifics, that's why it's, if we go about it carefully, the specifics may be, for example, is it over 100 years? Is it over 150 years? What is there a specific geographic area? So opposition in general, on a hypothetical and
Devil is in the
undetermined,
details.
that's the different thing. Also, how long is the demolition? I mean, is it,
And do you have a list of the, do you have an upfront list of the properties? So somebody knows ahead of time
Right.
whether it might be subject to it. That would make a huge difference,
Huge difference.
rather than doing it at the point in time they wanna destroy it.
I get prevent, but delay, what's
the idea behind a delay, and.
When this is like, how, is it 6 months, is it 3 years, 10 years?
We've looked at towns, and by the way, a lot of towns, and a lot of towns on the North Shore have demolition delays. They are successful, depending on what the town you talk to, anywhere between 20 and 60% of the time in actually preventing the demolition of the building. Because the only thing that the demolition delay does is, one, add a little cost to the developer in terms of what they're going after, and two, give the community a chance to come together and maybe propose some solution that saves the building, or maybe saves the exterior of the building, or does something.
But it also bumps up against CBA timeframes for decisions made. If the ZBA issues a special permit, it's only good for or a variance, it's only good for a limited period of time. And you're supposed to
Well,
apply,
it solves the whole problem.
yeah, you're supposed to apply, to change the structure before you tear it down.
Yeah.
So that, it just gets complicated. I'm sure you can work through it, but it gets complicated.
I'm gonna take my leave because
So you're leaving.
Thank you, Richard.
I will watch you all.
Oh,
Why, your meeting is going on? Okay.
No.
Okay, well, I think I have an outdated list of questions here, so somebody help me, what are we missing?
The last one on what we have is, should we consider removing existing special permit requirements?
And we talked
On
about that
title,
already.
right, we're done with that, and that's the last one.
So the one, I have another one, how do we evaluate the impact of potential development on current residential parking needs, commercial parking needs, and traffic congestion? And I guess that's something that consulting can
Yeah.
do for us.
yeah, I think that was one of the interesting things that Richard was noting in the model. That it
didn't seem to make a
It
difference.
seemed like you could use the current parking requirements or use one per unit, and it didn't seem to impact the density, which is
Strange.
kind of interesting. So the thought is that it's probably because the parking's in the setback, which you're excluding from your buildable area anyway.
Yeah,
But it also doesn't appear as if they are looking at, this is one of the things we don't know is, are they actually looking at a certain square footage per unit? You know, certainly with the SLV project, there was a minimum square footage for a 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, and 3-bedroom, and I don't know if that's involved in this at all, but it doesn't seem
think
like,
so.
based on the results, that,
so they're just saying it's like 1,000 square feet per unit?
I'm not sure they're saying anything, but they're saying it's supposed to be good for families, so you need a certain amount of square footage for families, so it makes no sense to me
Yeah,
at this point.
That's why we hire consultants.
that's
Yeah.
why we have the consultant, exactly.
Well, plus they'll come at it from an independent view, which is
Well,
important to the credibility of the whole process.
Our consultant's the one that created the.
No, but I mean, for the town, an independent view of the town.
Yeah.
And I think, actually, the more I think about her role in it initially, it may benefit us because I think she has credibility with the state. And so there are things that we want her to push for us.
Right.
So
Yeah.
might not be such a bad thing.
But I don't know, I was kind of disappointed in her reaction to something where I think Gail was asked to ask whether our units requirement, our acreage requirement was 37 or 39. And I haven't seen the whole email yet, but the synopsis I got was, she basically said, well, it doesn't really matter,
Well, I think
You're
what
probably
she's
gonna
saying-
you're probably not gonna be exact anyway.
Yeah, that's what her answer was.
But, I mean, I'm sorry, it makes a difference.
It does matter.
Well, I think
yeah.
the unit capacity makes a big difference.
Yeah. So I was a little frustrated,
Yeah.
but I don't,
Let's see, we'll see what
Let's see.
happens.
It wasn't really in context, so it's kind of hard to know.
Okay, well, that reminds me of another thing. As I said, I look at the MIT presentation again. I recommend you do it too, because I got a lot of stuff out of it that I didn't get at the time.
Is that on the website?
Yeah, it
Okay.
is.
Because I asked them for the deck.
Yeah, we have the deck.
Oh, we did? We didn't get
Yeah,
it.
Chris sent it out to everyone, I think.
No.
No, I haven't
Well,
seen it.
I have the deck, I can send.
I haven't seen it.
That'd be great.
Okay, I think that would be useful as well.
So their final, in December, their semester ends.
Right.
They'd like to make a final presentation. And so I want to sort of think about how that might happen. Are we gonna do it the same way we did? I want to give them some feedback. If anybody has any questions or comments, we can go from these again.
Their sound quality was pretty bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be great if they could come here, actually.
Well, we can ask them to.
How many?
Yeah.
Or maybe some of them could
Some of
come.
them, yeah, there
That
were
would
three.
be-
people who
yeah.
were
Only like
presenting.
4 spoke, I think.
Yeah, three, only
I think
three.
that
And
class-
one of the gals was impossible
At
to
the
hear.
end, I think there's gotta be at least 20 people sitting at that table.
Yeah,
Do we want to make this a big public event?
yeah, so I'm wondering, or have it a joint meeting? Ron Master Giacomo said, why don't we have a joint meeting with the planning board? Maybe it could be a meeting with the planning board and the select board for that matter.
So I could go to one meeting in 2 hats, that'd be good.
You could, yeah.
Increases the density.
You can take that 2 ways.
Yep.
The only issue about public meetings is we've made some effort to tell people, we didn't hire MIT.
Right.
Yeah.
We're not following their instructions in doing what we're doing. They're just giving us input on a class project.
Right, and maybe some ideas.
It's not like, we're saying, well, MIT must be right, or something like
Right.
that. I think we wanna be judicious about playing this up.
And
I
there
mean,
were some inaccuracies in what they
Yeah,
said.
yeah.
Well, there were, and I think those we can get corrected.
My feeling would be to let them, I would say, we really think you should come, or send a team or something.
Right.
And let's sit in a room like this, and if
Let's see,
members of the planning board wanna come, they're welcome, and, we'll put it on the, I guess we say that, general public, if you wanna come, you can come.
and not playing it up is, I think,
No,
a good
I
idea.
wouldn't.
Because we don't know what they're gonna say.
No,
We
no,
have
it's-
no idea.
Well,
And
now
it
we
could
know,
be,
now we know what they're gonna say.
Not
'cause they-
really,
no, I don't know what the conclusions are gonna be.
because we kind of gave them input and it sounded like they were gonna pay attention to it. I
And,
don't know.
we didn't hire them to do
Right.
something for us. They're,
They're
just
fooling around.
gadflies, if you will, in a negative way, to put it.
Jeez.
pejoratively. They're not, you know, we didn't go to them and say, help us out with this. It's wonderful that they're willing to give us something, but
Right.
I don't think we are holding them forth as being, aha, here.
Here's the
I mean,
solution.
they
yeah.
are potentially a source of some new ideas. I
Sure,
mean, they're
yeah,
young people
which is
who are
great.
closer to current planning practice than any of us are.
Right.
But that's all.
Well, and
Potentially,
I did like how they presented some of the data.
about the demographic data.
Yeah, I thought that was effective and something that could benefit us when, you know, we go into our next phase.
And maybe we invite Emily to come and listen.
Oh,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah, sure. Well, she can tune in on Zoom.
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah, we don't ring up a bill for it.
Right. All right, well, I'll talk to Ron about this and see if he'll be happy with us just inviting the planning board members to come.
I think the select board would like to be included too.
Yeah.
Sure, no, yeah,
Whether-
of course. You're invited to everything, and you know
She's already on every board. Why not?
that.
Right.
She's
There
gonna have
are other
she's gonna,
people on the select board.
she's gonna have a residential unit on the 3rd floor of this building.
Here's a thought for town hall, we could.
We want to preserve the character of the town, remember?
Okay.
All right, so the last item on the agenda was the approval of the minutes, but we don't have them, so.
Yeah,
we'll
so there we
just
go.
leave it for the next meeting.
Any
No.
public comment?
I don't know if anyone's on.
The only person on is Jane Hardy.
Okay, so I guess it will be.
Is there any public comment?
I don't think so.
Hand's not raised.
Okay, I don't have any other administrative matters either, so.
Move we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
When's our next meeting? So the 16th with
10th.
Emily.
Yeah.
Okay,
16th, yes.
okay.
A
Got it.
week from today.